Welcome back to Tech Unplugged. For today's deep dive, we've got something pretty interesting, a research paper you guys sent in, and we're going to try to unpack it together.
Sounds good.
It's about a newly discovered vulnerability in those large language model agents, the ones like the AI agents that can do a bunch of stuff.
Right, right.
And it's called agent reasoning hijacking, which, well, it's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, yeah. And it's definitely something we need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the paper itself is called UDora, a unified red teaming framework against LLM agents by dynamically hijacking their own reasoning, March 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the basics. Like, what is this whole reasoning hijacking thing about?
Basically, it's all about manipulating the agent's thinking, its internal process.
Okay, but how do they actually do that? It sounds like something out of a movie.
So attackers can insert these things called adversarial strings into the input that the agent gets, but it's not like typical malware or anything.
Right.
It's more like they're designed to subtly influence the agent's thought process, like leading it down a garden path,
So even if you give it what seems like a normal instruction.
Exactly. It can get twisted into something malicious.
That's kind of wild. And the paper mentions optimizing these strings. What's that about?
Yeah, so Appendix B shows how they use these data sets like inject agent and web shop. These are data sets of real agent interactions to refine and optimize those adversarial strings.
So they're not just random. They're specifically crafted to be effective.
Right, making them much harder to detect with simple filtering.
Okay, and this isn't just theoretical, is it? They actually showed real-world examples.
Oh, yeah. Appendix C gets into that, showing attacks against stuff like, Perplexity AI Sonar, for instance, and AutoGen's AI email agent.
Oh, wow.
So you could have an AI, let's say one designed to summarize documents, but it ends up revealing private info because it's been tricked.
Or your email agent could start sending out spam, right?
Exactly. Or even worse, phishing attempts.
So if someone pulls this off successfully, what kind of damage are we talking about?
Well, it depends on what the agent can actually do, what kind of access it has. It could be data theft emails, financial stuff, that sort of thing.
Right.
Or financial fraud, spreading misinformation, you name it. If the agent has the right permissions, it could even get unauthorized access to systems.
So as these agents get more and more powerful, the stakes just keep getting higher.
Absolutely.
So is this like a problem with specific AI models, or is it something more fundamental?
They highlighted some models specifically, like Llama 3.18b, Mistral 7b, even GPT-4o, Claude 3, GPT 3.5, and GPT-4.
Wow, a lot of them.
But the real vulnerability, it's more about how these agents are designed.
Right.
It's the ones that use chain of thought reasoning and can interact with external tools that are most at risk.
Makes sense. If they can think step by step and then act on those thoughts,
Yeah.
that's where the danger lies.
Exactly.
So what can we do about this? I mean, there's got to be some way to fight back.
The paper does suggest some mitigation strategies, like really robust input sanitization.
Okay.
Not just simple checks, but something that actually looks at the intent behind the input.
Interesting.
Another thing is real-time monitoring of the agent's thought process.
So like watching what it's thinking as it does it.
Yeah, like a detective looking for anything unusual or unexpected.
Cool. What else?
Well, we need more fine-grained control over what tools these agents can access,
Right, limiting the damage they can do.
Exactly. And then there's adversarial training, which basically means training the AI models to recognize these hijacking attempts.
Like teaching them to defend themselves.
Exactly. And finally, you have output verification, double-checking what the agent's actually doing before letting it go through.
So to sum up, what we're looking at here is a vulnerability that might seem subtle, but could have some pretty big consequences.
Yeah, it really shows how important AI security is, especially as these systems get more advanced.
It's almost like we're taking these really powerful tools and we're just assuming they'll always be used the way we intend.
Right, and this research is a reminder that that's a dangerous assumption to make. The attackers are basically using the agent's own intelligence against it.
And that brings us to a question for you, our listeners. As AI becomes more and more a part of our lives, how do we make sure that it stays safe and aligned with our goals?
Especially when you've got these incredibly clever adversaries out there.
It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for more explorations into the world of tech.